Milo had never expected that a simple scouting mission could turn into the most terrifying moment of his life. The sun had barely risen over the jagged cliffs of the distant planet. He had been sent to explore when his small exploration ship encountered a strange energy field. He had been alone, mapping potential colonies for Earth's expanding colonies in space. His task was simple: observe, record, and return. Yet something about the shimmering light that stretched across the horizon felt alive. Curiosity has always got the better of him. Milo activated the scanner to study the field, but before he could understand it, a sudden pulse of energy threw his ship into chaos. The controls spun in every direction, alarms blared, and before he knew it, the ship was ripped from orbit and fell into a strange alien landscape. Trees shimmered in unnatural colors, and the sky glowed a faint green. Everything looked alive and powerful, and Milo's heart raced. He tried to radio for help, but the signals bounced back, distorted and meaningless. There was no one nearby who could hear him. The planet felt empty, yet somehow he could sense something watching him. Before he could analyze the strange feeling, bright beams of light surrounded his ship. The ground shook, and Milo felt a strange force lift him out of his cockpit. He struggled, but the energy was too strong. When the light finally faded, Milo was no longer in the forested landscape. He was standing on a smooth platform, much larger than anything he had seen on Earth. The walls glowed with a soft blue light, and the floor beneath him vibrated gently as if alive. Milo looked around, confused, and his heart pounded faster as he realized he was not alone. Creatures of all shapes and sizes surrounded him. Some had 4 legs, some 6, and others moved in ways that defied gravity. But what caught his attention most was the arena itself. It was enormous, stretching upward for hundreds of feet, with platforms rising in layers. On each platform, strange beings watched silently, their eyes glowing with interest. Milo's stomach twisted as he realized he had been brought here as part of a show. A loud horn sounded, echoing across the arena. The crowd roared, and Milo instinctively stepped back. From the shadowed entrance of the arena, a figure emerged. His eyes widened in disbelief. The creature was at least 10 feet tall, towering over everyone in the arena. Its body was muscular, and its skin shimmered like polished stone. Its armor was strange but elegant, designed for speed as well as strength. Milo froze. He had studied many alien species during his training, but nothing prepared him for this. The alien gladiator's eyes, large and golden, focused directly on him. She moved with precision, each step calculated, her gaze sharp and unreadable. She carried no visible weapon, yet Milo could feel the power radiating from her. The crowd's roar grew louder. They chanted in a language Milo could not understand, yet the emotion was clear: anticipation, excitement, and hunger for combat. Milo realized they expected a fight. His mind raced. He had no weapons, no plan, and no way to defend himself. Every survival instinct screamed at him to run, but the arena was sealed. There was no escape. The gladiator stopped a few meters from him. She lowered her massive head slightly, tilting it as if inspecting him. Milo's pulse pounded in his ears. He swallowed hard and tried to appear calm, though his hands shook. He knew panic would make the situation worse. Suddenly, she lunged forward. Milo instinctively jumped aside, but her movement was so fast that he barely had time to react. She landed silently, her eyes never leaving him. Milo realized this was a test. He had been brought here not to be killed immediately, but to prove something. Time seemed to slow. Milo scanned the arena desperately. There were objects scattered across the floor, strange, glowing stones and odd tools, but none seemed useful as weapons. He needed a plan, but what could a human do against a 10-foot alien with strength beyond imagination? As he thought, the gladiator paused. Her massive hands clenched and unclenched, and she leaned closer, her eyes studying him. Milo noticed something strange. There was no hatred in her gaze, no malice. It was almost curiosity. He remembered his training. Observation was key. He needed to show her that he was worth more than a weak target. Milo's mind raced. He moved cautiously, keeping his hands visible, showing he meant no harm. Then he did something unexpected. Spoke. "I am Milo," he said clearly, hoping she understood. "I am not your enemy. I mean no harm." The gladiator tilted her head, as if puzzled by his words. Milo continued, using gestures to indicate peace. He mimicked the movements he had seen other explorers use when meeting intelligent species for the first time. He stepped slowly backward, giving her space. The crowd's roar didn't stop. They demanded a fight. Milo could hear their excitement, their hunger for spectacle. He felt trapped in a nightmare, yet a small part of him noticed the gladiator's hesitation. She had not attacked. Not fully. She seemed thoughtful. Minutes passed, or perhaps seconds' time, felt strange in the arena. Milo kept moving carefully, maintaining eye contact. He hoped to communicate that he was not prey, but something different. Then slowly, the gladiator crouched slightly. She flexed her massive arms, and Milo flinched. Suddenly she spoke. Her voice was deep, melodic, and unlike anything Milo had heard. The words were alien, but the tone was clear. She was communicating. Milo did not understand, yet her intent was obvious. She was deciding his fate. Milo swallowed hard and did the only thing he could think of. He raised his hands in surrender and nodded. He hoped that this small gesture of trust would reach her. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the gladiator stepped back. The crowd gasped. She raised her massive head and made a sound that echoed across the arena, a call that seemed to challenge everyone watching. Then, without warning, she turned and walked away from Milo. Toward a platform that overlooked the arena, the crowd erupted in shock. Milo could hardly believe his eyes. He was alive. The gladiator had spared him. He realized that, whatever this alien was, she had recognized something in him. Something worth saving? Milo's relief was tempered by confusion. What did it mean that he had been spared? Why him? His mind raced as he looked up at the towering figure. She turned her head slightly, and Milo felt as if she were studying him still, assessing him. A guard approached him and gestured for him to follow. Milo had no choice. He walked carefully, keeping his eyes on the gladiator as he was led toward the inner chambers of the arena. His legs felt weak, and his heart was still racing, but he could not stop thinking about what had just happened. For the first time, Milo realized that this planet, this arena, and this alien species were not just dangerous, they were intelligent. They observed, judged, and rewarded behavior in ways humans could not always predict. And now, Milo was part of a story far larger than he had ever imagined. As he was brought into a quiet chamber, he could see the gladiator watching from above. She was no longer a threat in the immediate sense, but her presence filled the room with power. Milo understood that his life had changed forever. The arena had not claimed him, but it had chosen him for something. He did not yet know what that something was. But Milo felt a strange mix of fear and excitement. His journey on this alien world had only just begun. And the towering gladiator had made it clear he was no ordinary human, and somehow he had survived. Milo had barely caught his breath when the guard opened the door to the chamber. The room was vast, unlike anything he had seen on Earth. Its walls shimmered with a metallic glow, and strange lights moved slowly along the floor as if alive. Milo noticed symbols etched into the walls that pulsed faintly. They seemed to hum with energy, and the sound made his stomach twist. The guard, a creature with long limbs and bright reflective eyes, gestured for Milo to sit on a low platform in the center of the room. Milo obeyed, trying to hide the shaking of his hands. He was still in shock from the arena. He could not stop thinking about the towering gladiator. She had spared him when every instinct and every creature in the arena had expected her to strike. Why had she chosen him? Suddenly, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed through the chamber. Milo's heart leaped into his throat. The gladiator entered. Her presence filled the room, not just physically, but in every sense. Even standing still, she seemed alive with strength and power. Her golden eyes locked onto Milo, and for a moment, the room felt silent. Then she spoke. The words were alien, but Milo sensed their meaning in the tone, the way her body moved, the intent in her gaze. She was challenging him. Not with weapons, but with presence. She wanted to see if he understood, if he could react, if he could survive not just by strength, but by wit. Milo realized this was his first true test. He had survived the arena, but this was more personal. He had to prove that he was not just a weak human. He studied the room carefully. There were objects scattered across the floor, shapes that glowed faintly, like tools, but he had no idea what they did. The gladiator's eyes never left him. She moved slowly to one side, crouching slightly, flexing her muscles as if preparing to spring into action at any moment. Milo's mind raced. He knew he could not fight her in strength. He had to fight in intelligence, in creativity. He took a deep breath and remembered his training. Observation first, reaction second. He watched her movements, the way her feet shifted lightly on the glowing floor, the way her eyes scanned him as if reading his mind. He noticed a pattern in her stance, a rhythm in her breathing. This was his chance. He moved slowly, raising his hands in a gesture of peace. Then he picked up one of the glowing objects near him. It was round and smooth, faintly warm. Milo held it carefully, experimenting, trying to see if it could help him. The gladiator tilted her head. He thought he saw a flicker of interest in her gaze. Suddenly, she lunged. Milo reacted instinctively, dropping the object and rolling to the side. She stopped just short of him, her massive body vibrating with energy. The ground shook where she had landed, and Milo could feel the force in his chest. He realized something. She was not trying to hurt him. She was testing him, pushing him to react. He scrambled to his feet, keeping his eyes on her. "I am not your enemy," he said aloud, even though he was unsure she could understand. He hoped the tone of his voice, the confidence in it, would communicate more than words could. The gladiator's head tilted slightly. She seemed to understand, at least in part. For a moment, they simply stared at each other. Milo noticed the subtle changes in her posture, the way her muscles tensed and relaxed. He began to mirror her movements, careful to match her rhythm without copying exactly. Slowly, cautiously, he stepped closer to one of the glowing objects. He picked it up, turning it in his hands. It pulsed lightly, responding to his touch. The gladiator moved again, more slowly this time, circling him. Milo realized that this was not just a test of strength or speed. It was a test of perception, of intelligence, of courage. He had to show her that he was capable of understanding, capable of reacting, capable of surviving, not just by running, but by thinking. He remembered a principle from Earth's exploration training: observe, adapt, overcome. Milo adapted his stance, keeping his hands visible but ready to react. The gladiator crouched lower, her gaze never leaving him. Then, in a sudden burst, she sprang forward faster than Milo expected. He rolled to the side again, narrowly avoiding the impact. The ground shook where she had landed, and the sound echoed in the chamber. Milo scrambled to his feet, heart pounding. He realized that each of her movements carried information. She was testing him, but she was also communicating. He needed to respond in kind. He raised his hands again, showing that he understood the test. Then he moved toward another glowing object, picking it up and turning it slowly. He experimented, trying to see if it could interact with her movements. The gladiator paused. Milo sensed that she had noticed his action, that she had recognized the attempt to understand rather than attack. For a moment, the room felt completely still. Then she moved closer, her massive form casting a shadow over him. Milo held his ground, keeping his eyes on hers. He did not flinch, did not step back. He realized that courage was just as important as intelligence. Slowly, she crouched even lower, flexing her arms. Milo prepared himself, ready to react. But instead of attacking, she stopped and made a low sound, almost like a rumble. It was not aggressive, but it was powerful. Milo realized that this was approval. She was testing him, and he had passed this part. A sudden voice echoed in the chamber, unfamiliar but commanding. It spoke quickly in the alien language. Milo could tell from the gladiator's response that it was an order or a command from the arena's rulers. The gladiator's posture shifted slightly, but her eyes never left Milo. Then, without warning, She moved to the center of the room and gestured for him to follow. Milo obeyed cautiously, stepping carefully. His mind raced with questions. Why had she spared him in the arena? Why was she leading him now? He realized that this was only the beginning. The gladiator was showing him that she had the power to decide his fate, and perhaps more than that. She was showing him that she saw something in him worth testing. The gladiator stopped in front of a large platform that glowed faintly. Milo stepped closer, noticing symbols etched into the surface. They pulsed lightly under his touch. He felt energy pass through him, not painful but strong, as if the platform could sense his presence. The gladiator stood behind him, her massive frame protecting him, yet somehow encouraging him to move forward. Then she spoke again. Milo did not understand the words, but the tone was clear, a challenge. He realized that he was being asked to prove something, to demonstrate not only courage, but ingenuity. The platform responded to his movements. He shifted his weight, tested different gestures, and watched the gladiator's reactions. Each movement seemed to earn her approval, each hesitation drew her attention. Hours passed, though Milo could not be certain. Time felt different in the chamber. He experimented, observed, and adapted. The gladiator moved silently behind him, offering no hints, giving no advantage. Yet Milo felt a strange connection forming. Despite her size and power, she seemed almost respectful. She had spared him once, and now she was guiding him through this test without harming him. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the gladiator stepped back. She raised her massive head and made a sound that echoed across the chamber. Milo understood immediately that this was the conclusion of the test. The energy in the room shifted, and Milo felt a strange warmth. As if the platform itself approved of him, the gladiator looked down at him, her golden eyes meeting his. Milo held her gaze, understanding that this moment was important. He had passed her challenge. He had survived her test, not by strength, but by intelligence, courage, and careful observation. Then she did something unexpected. She stepped closer and extended one of her massive hands, a gesture of acknowledgement. Milo hesitated, then took it carefully. Her grip was strong, but not crushing. It was firm, commanding, yet reassuring. He realized in that instant that he had earned her respect. The crowd in the arena outside erupted in noise, sensing the shift. Milo could feel the energy of the arena responding to the bond that had formed. The gladiator had made a choice. She had spared him, tested him, and now she had acknowledged him as someone of value. Milo felt a mixture of relief, pride, and fear. He was still in an alien world, surrounded by beings far stronger than himself. Yet he knew something had changed. He was no longer simply a captive. He was part of something larger, something he did not yet fully understand. The gladiator stepped back, giving Milo space. Then, with a swift motion, she turned and walked to a raised platform overlooking the arena. Milo realized that the next stage was about to begin. The challenge in the arena had not ended. It had only transformed. Milo stood in the center of the chamber, heart pounding, mind racing. He had survived the first test, but he knew that the real journey had just begun. The gladiator had spared him, and that act had changed everything. He understood that she saw something unique in him, something worth recognizing. And as Milo looked up at her towering form, he realized one thing clearly. He was not just a human on this alien world. He was a contender, a participant, and perhaps, if he proved himself further, something more. The arena was no longer a place of fear. It was a place of challenge, learning, and unexpected opportunity. Milo took a deep breath and prepared himself. Whatever came next. He knew he had already taken the first step toward earning the gladiator's trust and survival in this strange, powerful world. Milo had spent the night in a chamber near the arena, but sleep had been difficult. His mind raced with thoughts about the towering gladiator who had spared him. He could not stop thinking about her golden eyes, her immense power, and the strange sense of intelligence that radiated from every movement she made. He felt a mixture of awe and fear. Yet beneath that fear, there was also curiosity. Who was she? Why had she chosen him? And what did it mean that he had survived? The next morning, the chamber doors opened again, and Milo was led toward the training grounds. The gladiator was already there, waiting. She stood tall, her posture strong and confident, yet her gaze softened slightly when she saw him. Milo felt a strange sense of relief mixed with apprehension. He had survived the first challenge, but this was clearly another step. "Follow me," she said in her deep melodic voice. Milo did not understand the words, but the tone carried meaning. It was calm, commanding, yet not threatening. He followed cautiously, his eyes constantly on her movements. Every step she took was precise, deliberate, and graceful, despite her size. Milo realized that she had trained for years, perhaps decades, to move with such perfect control. The training ground was enormous. It stretched farther than Milo could see, filled with platforms, obstacles, and strange glowing symbols embedded in the floor. Creatures of various shapes and sizes moved around, practicing their own skills, yet all eyes seemed to be drawn to the gladiator. Milo felt tiny in comparison. His heart raced. She gestured for him to step onto one of the glowing platforms. Milo obeyed, his hands trembling slightly. He noticed that the platform pulsed under his weight. It seemed to respond to his presence. Milo realized that this was another test. The platform was not just a surface. It was part of the training, part of the challenge. The gladiator moved to stand beside him. Despite her immense size, she lowered her head so that Milo could see her face clearly. Then she made a sound, slow and deliberate. Milo tilted his head, trying to mimic her movements and respond in some way. To his surprise, the platform beneath him pulsed brighter. He realized that she was teaching him a form of communication, a way to interact with the environment using observation, focus, and intention. Milo took a deep breath. He concentrated on the platform, copying the rhythm of her movements. The glow intensified, and he felt energy flow through his body. He could not explain it, but it was as if the platform recognized his presence, acknowledged his effort, and rewarded his focus. The gladiator's eyes gleamed with approval. For hours they practiced together. Milo learned quickly that she was not just testing his reflexes or his intelligence. She was teaching him to observe, anticipate, and adapt. Every gesture she made, every shift in her stance carried meaning. Milo had to pay attention, think quickly, and respond without hesitation. It was exhausting, but exhilarating. He had never felt so alive. As the day progressed, Milo noticed subtle signs of her interest in him. She would adjust her movements to match his, slow down when he struggled, and allow him space to experiment. Milo realized that she was not just a teacher or a tester. She was recognizing his potential. For the first time, he felt that their relationship was changing. He was no longer just a captive or a target. He was something more, someone worth training and understanding. During a break, Milo sat on a platform, trying to catch his breath. The gladiator stood a few feet away, watching him quietly. She did not speak, but her presence was comforting in a strange way. Milo realized that despite her size and power, she was patient. She had not rushed him, had not forced him, and had allowed him to learn at his own pace. Curiosity overcame Milo. He tried again to speak. "Why? Why did you spare me?" His voice was hesitant. The gladiator's head tilted slightly. She did not respond with words, but with a gesture. Her hand pointed toward him, then toward herself, and then back to him. Milo interpreted it as she had recognized something unique in him, something beyond strength, something worth saving. Milo's heart swelled with understanding. The gladiator was not just a fighter. She was intelligent, honorable, and capable of seeing value where others might not. He realized that survival in this world was not just about power. It was about respect, trust, and recognition. He had earned a small measure of both, and that was extraordinary. The next part of the training began with movement. The gladiator led Milo to an area filled with obstacles, glowing pillars, uneven platforms, and strange floating shapes. She demonstrated first, moving with agility that belied her size. Milo watched carefully, noting how she adjusted her steps, distributed her weight, and reacted to the environment. Then she gestured for him to try. Milo took a deep breath and began. At first he stumbled, misjudging the height of the platforms and the timing of his steps. But the gladiator moved beside him, correcting him with gentle nudges and precise gestures. Slowly, Milo began to find the rhythm. He moved faster, more confidently. Anticipating the movement of the obstacles and learning to trust his instincts, hours passed. Milo's body ached, but he felt a strange satisfaction. Every time he succeeded, the gladiator's golden eyes gleamed with approval. Every time he failed, she adjusted her guidance rather than punishing him. Milo realized that this was more than training, it was partnership. He was learning to work with her, not against her. During a brief rest, Milo studied her more closely. He noticed scars along her arms, faint and pale against her golden skin. Each one told a story of battles fought and survived. Yet despite the marks, she moved with grace, strength, and control. Milo felt admiration swell inside him. He realized that courage was not measured by size alone, but by resilience, skill, and determination. As evening approached, Milo felt a strange bond forming. He could sense her attention, her curiosity, and her respect. She too seemed to recognize something in him, a combination of courage, intelligence, and persistence. Milo understood that their connection was rare. Across the galaxy, humans were often underestimated. Yet here, on this alien world, he was being acknowledged as worthy. The gladiator led Milo to a quiet corner of the training grounds. The sun, nor what he assumed was the sun, cast long, colorful shadows across the platforms. Milo realized that she was giving him a moment to reflect. He sat, taking deep breaths, while she stood guard nearby. He tried again to speak, pointing to himself and then to her. "Milo," he said, emphasizing his own name. Then he gestured toward her. He hoped she would understand. She tilted her head, then produced a series of sounds and gestures. Milo studied them carefully, mimicking her as best he could. The gestures created a rhythm of understanding, small bridge between species. The gladiator's hand reached toward him, palm open. Milo hesitated, then placed his hand against hers. The sensation was strong, almost electric, yet comforting. In that moment, Milo realized that trust was forming. He was no longer just a human in her presence. He was a participant, a partner, someone recognized for his worth. As night fell, Milo felt exhausted, but alive. He had survived the arena, passed the first test, and begun to understand the gladiator. He realized that she was not merely sparing him out of curiosity. She was choosing to recognize him as someone exceptional. The thought filled him with pride, but also with caution. He knew the challenges ahead would be even greater. Yet Milo also felt hope. He was no longer alone in this alien world. He had a guide, a protector, and now perhaps a friend. The gladiator had spared him once, tested him, and now she was teaching him. Milo understood that their bond was forming slowly, built on trust, respect, and shared effort, as he prepared to rest for the night. Milo reflected on what he had learned. Courage alone was not enough. Survival required observation, adaptation, and understanding. But most importantly, it required connection. The gladiator had shown him that, and Milo knew, deep in his heart, that he had taken the first real step toward earning her trust and recognition. Tomorrow would bring more challenges. The arena would call, the rulers would test, and Milo would face dangers beyond imagination. Yet for the first time, he felt ready. He had begun to understand the alien gladiator, and he sensed that she, too, had begun to understand him. And in that understanding, Milo found something stronger than fear, the spark of partnership. The next morning, Milo woke with a mixture of excitement and anxiety. Today he was told he would face his first real challenge alongside the gladiator. This was no simple training exercise. It was a trial designed by the arena's rulers to test both courage and teamwork. Milo's stomach twisted at the thought. He had survived her first test, learned to communicate with her, and begun to form a bond. But this would be different. The training ground had transformed overnight. Platforms rose higher, forming a maze of obstacles. Strange creatures prowled in the distance, some moving freely, others restrained by glowing barriers. Milo realized that the challenge was not only physical, but strategic. They would need to work together to survive. The gladiator stood tall beside him, her golden eyes focused on the first platform. She flexed her arms, muscles coiling with readiness. Milo took a deep breath and stepped forward. He could feel her presence beside him, strong and steady, a living shield. Her attention was entirely on him, and he realized that she would react not only to her own surroundings, but to his actions as well. The first obstacle was a series of floating platforms, glowing faintly and hovering above a pit filled with glowing liquid. Milo studied the pattern of their movement. He realized that timing was critical. If he jumped too early or too late, he would fall. He glanced at the gladiator. She crouched slightly, ready to leap. Milo tried to match her timing. He jumped, landing awkwardly but safely on the first platform. The gladiator followed, landing beside him with the grace of a predator. Milo could feel the vibration of her steps through the platform. Her presence was both reassuring and intimidating. He realized that together they were stronger. Her size gave them an advantage, but his quick thinking and observation allowed them to navigate in ways she alone could not. As they moved forward, a group of alien creatures appeared, blocking the path. They were fast and aggressive, their eyes glowing with a predatory light. Milo froze for a moment, heart pounding, but the gladiator's gaze remained calm. She gestured toward him, signaling that he needed to act. Milo understood. He remembered how she had taught him to observe, anticipate, and adapt. He grabbed a glowing object from the platform and tossed it near one of the creatures. It pulsed brightly, causing the creature to hesitate. The gladiator took advantage of the distraction, moving with incredible speed to strike the creature with a precise blow that sent it retreating. Milo felt a surge of pride. Together, they had worked as a team. The next part of the trial was even more dangerous. Platforms moved faster, some spinning or tilting unpredictably. Glowing barriers shifted and closed in patterns designed to trap anyone who misstepped. Milo felt a wave of fear, but he reminded himself of what he had learned: courage, observation, adaptation. He had to trust himself, and he had to trust the gladiator. She moved first, leaping across a spinning platform with astonishing precision. Milo followed, mimicking her movements as best he could. When a barrier shifted to block his path, she reached out, lifting him with surprising strength and placing him safely on the next platform. Milo realized in that moment how powerful their bond had become. It was not just survival, they were learning to work as one. Midway through the trial, they reached a narrow bridge suspended over a deep pit. The bridge was unstable, wobbling with every step. Milo's legs trembled, but the gladiator stood beside him, her presence steady. She made a series of low, melodic sounds, and Milo understood that she was guiding him, giving him the timing and confidence to cross safely. Step by step, he moved, following her rhythm, till they reached the other side. Suddenly, a group of larger creatures emerged, blocking the path ahead. Their size rivaled the gladiators, and their movements were aggressive and fast. Milo felt panic rising, but the gladiator's golden eyes met his. She made a gesture, pointing toward a series of glowing pillars along the edges of the arena. Milo understood. They needed to use the environment, not fight directly. He ran forward, testing the spacing of the pillars and timing his jumps. The gladiator followed, using her strength to knock obstacles into the creature's path, slowing them down. Milo realized that together they could overcome challenges that neither could manage alone. It was not just skill or power, it was coordination, strategy, and trust. Hours passed as they navigated the trial. Every step brought new dangers: spinning platforms, shifting barriers, and aggressive creatures. Milo's heart raced constantly, yet he felt alive in a way he had never experienced. The gladiator moved beside him, always aware of his position, always ready to act. He began to notice subtle signs of her respect. She allowed him space to make decisions, observed his actions carefully, and adjusted her responses to complement his choices. At one point, Milo stumbled on a narrow platform, nearly losing his balance. The gladiator reacted instantly, placing her massive hand beneath him to steady his fall. Milo's pulse raced, and he realized the enormity of the trust she had placed in him. She could have carried him forward without concern, but she chose to let him act, to let him prove his worth. Finally, they reached the last part of the challenge, a platform surrounded by a pit of glowing energy. A creature, massive and serpentine, blocked the exit. Milo's first instinct was to panic, but the gladiator's gaze remained calm. She gestured toward him, signaling that he needed to think. Milo scanned the platform, noticing a series of glowing orbs along the edges. He grabbed one and tossed it carefully toward the creature. It pulsed with light, momentarily blinding the creature. The gladiator lunged forward with incredible speed, striking the creature precisely. Milo felt awe and relief as the creature retreated. Together, they had completed the trial. Milo's heart pounded, but a smile spread across his face. They had survived not by brute force alone, but through strategy, observation, teamwork. The crowd outside erupted in noise. Milo could hear the cheering, the shouts, and the excitement. He realized that the spectators had witnessed something extraordinary. A human had survived alongside a gladiator, not as a victim, but as a partner. The arena's rulers would not ignore this display of skill, courage, and coordination. The gladiator turned to Milo, golden eyes gleaming. She made a series of sounds and gestures, and Milo understood the meaning immediately. Approval, acknowledgement, and perhaps pride. For the first time, Milo felt that he was truly recognized as someone capable, not just by her, but by the arena itself. As they walked off the platforms, Milo felt a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. His body ached, his muscles were sore, but he had proven himself in a way he never imagined. The gladiator stayed close, watching him carefully, yet allowing him to move independently. Milo realized that their bond had grown stronger through the trial. They had faced danger together, relied on each other, emerged victorious. In the quiet moments afterward, Milo tried to speak again. "We did it," he said, smiling. The gladiator tilted her head and responded with a series of melodic sounds. Milo could not understand the words, but he understood the tone, affirmation, and respect. He felt a deep sense of accomplishment. That night, Milo reflected on the day. He had survived the arena, passed the first tests, and faced real danger alongside the gladiator. He realized that courage alone was not enough to survive in this world. It required intelligence, observation, adaptation, and trust. He had proven that humanity could rise too. Challenges, even in an alien world, the gladiator had not only recognized his potential, but had also shown him that partnership could overcome obstacles far greater than either could face alone. Milo understood that the arena was more than a place of danger. It was a place to test, teach, and recognize skill and courage, and he had earned his place. As he prepared to rest, Milo felt a quiet sense of anticipation. Tomorrow would bring new trials, perhaps even more dangerous than today. Yet he felt ready. He had begun to understand the gladiator, to communicate with her, and to work as a team. He realized that together, they could face challenges that neither could face alone. Milo drifted to sleep with a newfound confidence. The arena had tested him, but he had risen to the challenge. He was no longer just a human in a world of towering aliens. He was a partner, a contender, and perhaps, in the eyes of the gladiator, something more. And for the first time, Milo felt that he belonged not just in the arena, but in a bond that transcended species, built on courage, trust, and shared triumph. The arena was alive with energy. Milo could feel it vibrating through the floor beneath his feet. The crowd had gathered again, their eyes fixed on the center of the arena where he and the gladiator stood. He felt a mixture of excitement and tension. This was the final test. He had survived the training, faced the obstacles, and proven himself in the first trials. But today was different. Today, he would see if the bond he had built with the gladiator could withstand the ultimate challenge. The gladiator stood beside him, towering and powerful. Her golden eyes scanned the arena, noting every movement of the creatures, every shift in the platforms, and every reaction of the audience. Milo felt the calm strength radiating from her, and he realized that she would protect him. But she would also push him to give his best. He had to be ready. A loud horn echoed through the arena, signaling the start of the final challenge. From the far side, a massive gate opened, revealing creatures larger and more fearsome than any Milo had encountered before. Their bodies were covered in thick armored scales, and their eyes glowed with predatory intent. Milo's heart pounded. He glanced at the gladiator, whose posture was calm, poised, and ready. The creatures charged. Milo remembered the lessons he had learned: observe, adapt, trust, and act. He moved quickly, dodging the first attack and following the gladiator's lead. She leaped into action, striking with precise, controlled power. Milo watched her carefully, noting her movements, and realized he could anticipate her actions. He adjusted his steps, moved in tandem, and began to act as a team rather than as separate individuals. One of the creatures lunged at Milo directly. He froze for a brief moment, but the gladiator reacted instantly. She stepped between him and the creature, deflecting it with a precise strike that sent it tumbling back. Milo felt the rush of adrenaline and realized how much he had come to rely on her. He also understood that she relied on him in return. Every move they made together was coordinated, intuitive, and instinctive. The battle continued. Milo and the gladiator moved across the arena with speed and precision. He dodged, leaped, and observed constantly, learning from her every action. She struck with power, but she also protected him, guiding him with gestures, sounds, and subtle shifts in her stance. Milo began to feel a strange sense of unity. They were no longer teacher and student, or captor and captive. They were partners. At one point, a massive creature blocked their path to the exit. Its body was long and armored, and it lashed out with tremendous force. Milo remembered the glowing orbs from the previous challenge. He grabbed one, testing it as he had during training, and tossed it carefully toward the creature. The orb pulsed brightly, startling the creature and giving the gladiator an opening to strike with precision. Milo felt a surge of pride. They had worked together perfectly, combining his quick thinking with her strength. The crowd's roar grew louder. Milo could hear the excitement, the astonishment, at seeing a human survive alongside a gladiator in such a dangerous trial. The arena's rulers were watching closely, their expressions unreadable. Milo knew that this was his moment to prove that humanity had value, that he had earned respect through courage, intelligence, and teamwork. The final obstacle appeared, a platform suspended above a pit filled with glowing energy, surrounded by fast-moving barriers. Milo's heart raced. He glanced at the gladiator. She nodded once, and he understood that this was their final coordinated move. He focused on the platform, remembering the lessons of observation and adaptation. Step by step, he moved carefully, timing his jumps with precision. The gladiator followed, adjusting her steps to his movements, ensuring they moved in unison. Milo realized that they had reached a level of connection that went beyond simple communication. They could sense each other's intentions, anticipate reactions, and act as one. Every leap, every dodge, every strike was synchronized. The creatures attempting to stop them fell back, unable to match the combined skill of human and gladiator. Finally, they reached the center of the platform, the last step before victory. The gladiator stood tall, her golden eyes on Milo. She made a series of low, melodic sounds. Milo could not understand the words, but the tone was unmistakable: acknowledgement and respect. He smiled, realizing that he had earned her approval completely. The arena erupted with cheering. The rulers, observing from their elevated seats, nodded in recognition. Milo and the gladiator had completed the trial together. He felt a sense of exhilaration unlike anything he had ever experienced. The bond they had built, forged through challenge and trust, had been tested and proven stronger than fear or danger as the noise of the crowd filled the arena. The gladiator turned to Milo. She lowered her massive head and extended her hand, palm open. Milo understood immediately. This was not just a gesture of respect. It was a declaration. She had chosen him as her prize, not in the sense of possession, but in recognition. He was special, valued, and worthy of acknowledgement in a way that transcended words. Milo took her hand carefully. The sensation was strong, almost electric, but comforting. In that moment, he felt a deep connection, a sense of belonging in a world far from Earth. The gladiator's eyes shone with warmth and respect, and Milo realized that he had been accepted fully, not as prey, not as a captive, but as an equal, a partner, and a friend. The arena's rulers made a series of sounds, issuing commands and acknowledging the victory. Milo did not understand the language, but the meaning was clear. He had passed the ultimate test. Humanity, represented by him, had proven its courage, intelligence, and resilience. He had earned respect from a species far stronger, larger, and more experienced than any human. The gladiator stepped down from the platform and gestured for Milo to follow her. Together they walked through the arena, the crowd's cheers echoing around them. Milo felt a mixture of pride, relief, and awe. He had survived, thrived, and now stood alongside a creature of immense power and honor. Their bond, built on trust and cooperation, had been solidified in the eyes of all who watched. Outside the arena, the gladiator led Milo to a private chamber. The sun, nor what he assumed was the sun, cast long shadows across the glowing floor. Milo felt exhausted, but the adrenaline still coursed through his veins. He turned to the gladiator. She stood silently, observing him with her golden eyes. He tried again to speak. "Thank you for trusting me," he said. She tilted her head slightly and made a low melodic sound. Milo did not understand the words, but he felt the meaning, acknowledgement, and connection. He realized that the gladiator had chosen to recognize him not only for surviving, but for rising to the challenge with courage, intelligence, and determination. For the first time, Milo felt truly understood in this alien world. He had proven that humans could rise to challenges, form bonds, and earn respect even from the strongest beings in the galaxy. The gladiator had not only spared him, but had made him her prize, a symbol of recognition, trust, and partnership. Days passed, and Milo trained alongside the gladiator, preparing for future challenges and learning more about her species, her culture, and her way of life. He realized that he had become part of something extraordinary. Humanity had a representative here, someone who could be respected not for strength alone, but for heart, mind, and courage. The gladiator continued to teach him, guiding him through advanced movements, strategy, and observation. Milo learned quickly, adapting to the alien environment and mastering skills he never thought possible. Together, they faced increasingly difficult challenges, each one strengthening their bond and proving that partnership could overcome obstacles far greater than either could face alone. Finally, the arena's ruler summoned them for a formal declaration. The gladiator stepped forward, towering and powerful, with Milo beside her. She spoke in her melodic, commanding language. Milo did not understand the words, but the tone was unmistakable. He was recognized, honored, and celebrated. The rulers acknowledged him as a symbol of humanity's courage and potential. Milo felt a surge of pride. He had not only survived, but had thrived, earned trust, and formed a bond that transcended species. He looked at the gladiator, who lowered her head in acknowledgement, and he realized that this was only the beginning. Together, they could face any challenge, explore any world, and represent both their species with honor and courage. As they walked from the arena, Milo felt a deep sense of accomplishment and belonging. He was no longer a human lost on a distant world. He was a partner, a champion, and a symbol of what humans could achieve. And standing beside him was the gladiator, his guide, protector, and friend, who had called him her prize and shown that respect, trust, and courage could bridge any gap, no matter how vast. Milo smiled, knowing that their journey had only just begun. Together, they would explore the stars, face dangers, and prove that humanity could rise to any challenge, earning recognition in even the most alien worlds.